Let me hit you with a reality that most men are too afraid to face. The biggest wound you can leave on a woman who doesn't value you is not betrayal. It's not anger. It's not silence. It's not even walking away. The deepest sting to her pride comes from something much simpler yet infinitely more powerful. You're no longer needing her validation. That's it. That's the raw truth that cuts deeper than any fight, any argument, or any dramatic breakup. But there's where men get it completely wrong. Society has fed you a lie from the time you were young. You've been told that if you give a woman everything, attention, money, loyalty, endless patience, then automatically she'll value you, respect you, and never leave. If that were true, explain this. Why do so many good men who give everything they possibly can, end up abandoned, replaced, or left broken by the very women they sacrificed for? The answer is simple, but it's uncomfortable to accept. Women don't always value what comes too easy. They don't always respect what is handed to them on a silver platter. And they will never treasure a man who makes his own value depend on their approval. Think about it. What really hurts a woman who doesn't value you isn't when you yell or when you argue or even when you walk away. What cuts her deeper than anything is when you continue your life as if her absence didn't change a single thing. That's the moment she realizes something devastating. She wasn't nearly as important as she believed she was. Let's slow this down because I want you to truly understand it. Relationships don't run on feelings. Feelings fade, they shift. They come and go like the seasons. What actually drives relationships are dynamics, the unseen rules and patterns that shape behavior. And one of the harshest dynamics in existence is this. When a woman senses that you've stopped needing her approval, she feels powerless. And if she never valued you in the first place, that powerlessness burns her pride even deeper, because in her mind, she thought she always had the upper hand. Now picture this. A woman begins to pull back from you. She ignores your calls. She disregards your effort. She even mocks your ambition. She's sending you a message loud and clear. You're not my priority. Most men panic at this moment. They start chasing. They beg. They overcompensate. They think, if I just try harder, if I just give more, if I just love her better, she'll finally see me worth. But that's a trap. Every ounce of effort you give to someone who doesn't value you only confirms that she was right to devalue you. You end up invisible, powerless, and drained, handing your strength over on a platter she never respected in the first place. But here's the controversial twist. Theon, most men never understand. The thing that will hurt her the most isn't you chasing, arguing, or proving yourself. The thing that devastates her pride is you doing the opposite. It's you becoming untouchable. It's you living with a level of self-respect so unshakable that it screams, I don't need your validation to breathe. That's when the script flips. That's when she begins to question herself. That's when she feels the icy sting of irrelevance in the life of a man she thought would orbit her forever. And listen closely. This isn't about playing games. This isn't about making her jealous. This is about something far more powerful. Reclaiming your position as a man who knows his worth. Because once you value yourself more than you value her opinion, the truth becomes clear. Her lack of respect never diminished you. It only diminished her place in your life, and that hurts more than any argument or speech ever could. Let me paint you another picture. Imagine a man named Daniel. For years, Daniel was strung along by a woman who constantly made him feel not enough. She ignored his texts, laughed at his dreams, and compared him to other men. And for years, Daniel begged for her approval. He thought if he just kept proving himself, one day she would finally see him. But one day, Daniel changed the script. He stopped begging. He stopped explaining. Has stopped orbiting her. Instead, he turned his energy inward into his career, his fitness, his friendships, his growth. He no longer reacted to her silence. He no longer rushed to her side. He simply outgrew her. Suddenly, the woman who once pulled the strings found herself without a puppet. And that's what shattered her pride. Because every human being, no matter how confident they pretend to be, craves significance. And when the person who used to revolve around you stops orbiting, you feel exposed. You feel irrelevant. For a woman who never valued you, that exposure hits harder than anything you could say to her face. But here's the key. This isn't about revenge. It's not about punishing her. It's not about proving a point. It's about refusing to hand your value to someone who doesn't see it. The hurt she feels is simply the byproduct of you stepping back into your true strength. Let's cut straight into another harsh truth. When something is always available, it loses its value. It doesn't matter if we're talking about money, food, or human connection. The principle is the same. Scarcity creates respect. Abundance without boundaries creates boredom. And this rule applies to you as a man. If you're always available, if you answer every call the moment it rings, if you cancel your plans the instant she texts, if you bend your entire life around her schedule, whether you realize it or not, you're sending a loud signal. I have nothing better going on than waiting for you. Now, you might tell yourself that this is love, that this is loyalty, that this is how you prove you care. But here's the controversial twist. It doesn't come across as loyalty, it comes across as desperation. And desperation kills attraction faster than betrayal ever could. Why? Because loyalty without self-respect isn't loyalty. It's submission. And women may accept it temporarily, but deep down they don't respect it. Respect is built on boundaries, and a man with no boundaries eventually becomes invisible. Think about it. At first, she might enjoy the attention. She might laugh at how quickly you respond. She might even test how much she can pull you away from your responsibilities. But slowly the dynamic shifts. She stops wondering where you are because she already knows. She stops wondering whether she's earned your attention because it's guaranteed. And when something is guaranteed, it loses its thrill. That's when indifference sets in. Picture this scenario. A man named Marcus falls deeply for a woman. He wants to prove himself, so he never says no. He drops everything. The second she calls, he sacrifices his hobbies, his friends, his goals just to make himself available for her. At first, she appreciates the effort, but slowly she begins to pull away. She takes longer to reply. She starts comparing him to other men. She begins to act as if his presence is a burden instead of a gift. Why? Because in her eyes, Marcus has no scarcity. He has no backbone. He has nothing that forces her to value his time. And without scarcity, there is no respect. Now imagine the same situation, but this time Marcus shifts the script. Instead of chasing, he creates space. He doesn't stop caring, but he stops overextending. He doesn't cancel his plans every time she texts. He doesn't rush to prove himself. Instead, he invests in his growth, his fitness, his career, his friendships, his purpose. Suddenly, she notices the gap. She feels the absence of his constant attention. She starts to wonder, why isn't he responding right away? Who has his attention now? What is he focused on that's more important than me? That curiosity, that discomfort is what shifts the power dynamic because it forces her to see something she didn't expect. She's no longer the center of his universe. And here's where the sting comes in. What hurts a woman who doesn't value you isn't your anger, your begging, or your attempts to convince her. What hurts is the realization that she no longer has the same grip on your life. She isn't the priority anymore. She isn't the queen on the throne she thought was guaranteed, and that reality burns her pride. Let's make this lesson practical. Being too available doesn't mean you're a good man. It doesn't mean you're loving. It means you're neglecting yourself. True love is not about sacrificing your worth. It's about balancing care for her with respect for yourself. A man who makes himself too available is like water pouring endlessly from a faucet, always there, always flowing, always taken for granted. But a man who values himself is like a rare vintage wine, exclusive, respected, sought after. Access to him must be earned. And here's the paradox. When you stop being too available, you don't push love away. You invite respect in. You create a dynamic where your time matters, your presence matters, your attention matters. And only then does she begin to feel the loss of what Fiancé took for granted. That sting, that sudden awareness of scarcity is what truly hurts her. Not because you punished her, but because she realizes she lost something rare by assuming it was disposable. Here's something most men don't realize. Your silence carries more power than any words you could ever speak. Think about it. Words can be twisted, arguments can be ignored, explanations can be dismissed. But silence cannot be manipulated. Silence forces a person to sit with themselves to confront the truth they were trying so hard to avoid. And for a woman who doesn't value you, that silence is devastating. Why? Because a silence removes fuel. When she disrespects you, when she mocks your efforts, when she ignores your presence, most men react. They argue. They demand recognition. They pour out paragraphs of emotion, hoping their words will finally get through. But every time you react, you hand her proof. Proof that she still controls your emotions. Proof that she still has power over your mood. Proof that she can break your frame whenever she chooses. But when you respond with silence, everything changes. Suddenly, she doesn't get the reaction she expected. She doesn't get the argument, the debate, the desperate need to be heard. All she gets is emptiness. And trust me, that emptiness is louder than anything you could ever scream. Silence has weight. It echoes. It creates questions that words could never answer. She begins to wonder, why isn't he acting? Why isn't he fighting back? Why doesn't he need to explain himself anymore? Did I lose my grip on him? Moved on to something or someone else? That uncertainty eats at her pride because it strips away the sense of importance she once had. As long as you keep reacting, she knows she matters in your emotional world. But the second you stop, she feels irrelevant. And irrelevance cuts deeper than anger ever could. Let's make this real. Imagine a man named Adrian. His girlfriend constantly disrespects his time. She cancels plans at the last minute. Shells off his ambitions. She even ignores his messages for days. Adrian, like most men, tries to fix it with words. He explains, he complains. He begs her to understand, but nothing changes. In fact, the more he talks, the less she respects him. One day, Adriana decides to do something different. He goes silent, not out of spite, not top-lay games, but because he refuses to keep bleeding energy into someone who refuses to value it. Instead of explaining himself, he redirects that energy into his fitness, his business, his peace of mind. Suddenly, the dynamic shifts. His silence becomes a mirror, reflecting her behavior back at her. She can no longer accuse him of overreacting. She can't twist his words. She can't play victim. All she's left with is her own actions staring her in the face. And that's when she feels thirsting because silence has no defense. You can argue with words. You can spin astery around accusations, but you cannot fight silence. It forces accountability, and here's the part most men miss. Silence isn't weakness. It takes incredible discipline to withhold words when your pride is wounded. It's easy to lash out, to argue, to beg for validation, but it takes strength to sit in silence, to protect your dignity, to refuse to play a losing game. Silence is not emptiness. It's strategy. It says, I will not argue for a place in your life. Either I belong there or I don't. And that is the harshest truth she will ever face. Because once she realizes that your silence is not about ignoring her, it's about valuing yourself. She feels something she didn't expect, powerless. She thought she could control the dynamic. She thought she could dictate your emotions. But when your silence shows her she no longer has that grip, it exposes her weakness. Men often underestimate just how much energy they waste on unnecessary explanations. But silence reclaims that energy. Silence transforms it into progress. Instead of begging for recognition, you're building. Instead of repeating yourself, you're leveling up. Instead of draining yourself in arguments, you're investing in your peace. And here's the beauty of it. Silence isn't about her. It's about you. It forces you to stop reacting emotionally and start thinking strategically. It gives you space to see clearly, to plan, to grow. It protects your dignity in situations where words would only cheapen it. That's why silence hurts more than any argument, because arguments fade, but silence lingers. Arguments can be dismissed, but silence keeps her awake at night. Arguments give her a stage to play on, but silence pulls the curtain down. So remember this, your silence is not a void. It's a boundary. It's a declaration without words that says, I don't chase respect. I embody it. And if you can't value me, then you don't get access to me. And that realization, that sting of irrelevance, cuts deeper than anything you could ever say. Let's be brutally clear. The greatest form of payback isn't yelling, isn't arguing, and isn't even walking away in anger. The greatest form of payback is outgrowing her, because once you outgrow her, you're no longer playing on the same field. You've elevated to a level she can't reach, and that realization hits her pride harder than anything else. Outgrowing her means you stop being the man who begged for her validation and you transform into the man who doesn't need it at all. It's not about revenge. It's not about trying to make her jealous. It's about evolution. It's about becoming such a strong, disciplined, and focused version of yourself that the woman who once disrespected you can no longer even recognize you. Think about it. Too many men stay trapped in dead relationships because they're afraid. Afraid of starting over. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of losing what little attention they get. And they call that fear loyalty. But here's the harsh reality. That's not loyalty. It's weakness. It's the fear of growth disguised as devotion. And nothing is less attractive than a man who refuses to grow. The only way to flip the script is to outgrow her. Imagine this. A man named Gabrielis in a relationship where his girlfriend constantly belittles him, shallows at his goals, ignores his efforts, and keeps him as a backup while entertaining other options. For years, Gabriel stays loyal. He sacrifices his dreams, hoping that one day she'll appreciate him. But she never does. She only devalues him more. Then one day Gabriel changes. He stops pouring his energy into her and he pours it into himself. He starts hitting the gym with intensity. He focuses on building his finances, his business, his discipline. He invests in his peace, his confidence, his growth. Instead of sending her 20 texts a day, he's learning, training, and creating. Months later, he's transformed. He walks differently, speaks differently, carries himself differently. He's no longer the man begging for her attention. He's the man women now pursue. And here is the sting. When she sees this new Gabriel, she realizes something painful. Not only did she lose him, she lost him to a version of himself that she can no longer access. That's the cut that lingers. Because in her mind, she thought he would always orbit around her. She thought he would always be available, always needing her, always proving himself. But he didn't. He evolved. He left her behind in a place she can't return from. That's why outgrowing her is the ultimate closure. It's not about her at all. It's about you. It's about refusing to stay stuck in cycles that drain you. It's about refusing to give your best energy to someone who never valued it. It's about realizing that your growth is the one thing no one can take from you. And here's the deeper truth. When you outgrow her, you no longer need her validation. You don't crave her texts, her attention, or her approval. Your life itself becomes proof of your value, your success, your strength, your peace. Those speak louder than any words. That's what truly hurts your pride. Not that you tried to punish her. Not that you argued with her, but that you didn't need her in order to reach. The man she once took for granted became untouchable without her. And here's the kicker. When you reach that level, it's not even about her anymore. It's about you looking in the mirror and finally respecting yourself more than you ever respected her opinion. It's about laughing at the version of yourself who once begged for scraps. It's about realizing you were always the prize. You just forgot it for a while. Men need to understand this. The best revenge isn't making her jealous. The best revenge isn't showing her what she lost. The best revenge is living in such a way that her absence didn't stop your evolution one bit. That's real strength. That's real freedom. That's what destroys her pride because it shows her she never had the power she thought she did. So here's your challenge. Stop waiting for her to change. Stop waiting for her to wake up and finally see your worth. She won't. And even if she did, you'd still be the man who wasted years waiting. The real victory is in walking away and outgrowing her. Because once you do, you'll look back and wonder why you ever settled for so little. Let's bring everything together. The harshest truth, the one most men don't want to face, is this. The reason so many women don't value men today is because too many men don't value themselves first. You can't expect someone to respect what you've already discounted. And every time you cancel your plans to fit into her schedule, every time you reply instantly like your life revolves around her, every time you beg for her attention instead of commanding respect, you're sending a clear message. I don't value myself enough to set boundaries. And if you don't value yourself, why would she? That's the root of the problem. Men keep thinking the solution is to give more, to love harder, to stay longer. But the truth is the opposite. The solution is to stop handing your worth to someone who refuses to see it. The solution is to build yourself so strong, So complete, so untouchable that whether she stays or goes, you remain unshaken. This doesn't mean becoming cold or cruel. It doesn't mean shutting down your heart. It means refusing to be weak, refusing to live as a shadow of the man you could become, refusing to settle for love without respect. Because love without respect is not love. It's dependency. And dependency is weakness, and weakness never earns admiration. So here is what men need to realize. When you stop chasing validation and start chasing growth, everything changes. Your energy changes. Your presence changes. The way people treat you changes. Even the women who once ignored you will notice. But by the time they do, you won't even care because you'll already have outgrown the need for their approval. That's why silence, scarcity, and outgrowing her aren't tricks or games. They are principles, standards you live by. Boundaries that protect your dignity and force you to keep moving forward. And that's the only real way to win. Not by proving yourself to her, not by fighting for scraps, not by waiting for her to wake up, but by living a life so grounded in self-respect that anyone who doesn't value you is automatically left behind. So, let me ask you something, and I want you to be brutally honest with yourself. Have you been in a situation where a woman didn't value you and you kept chasing her anyway? Did you make yourself too available? Did you argue, beg, or explain? Or did you finally make the decision to go silent, to outgrow her, to take back your power? Drop your story in the comments. Share it, because this isn't just me talking at you. This is a conversation for men who are ready to wake up, rise up, and finally take themselves seriously. And let me leave you with one final thought. If she doesn't value you, stop trying to change her mind. Change your life instead. Because once you level up, once you become the man you were meant to be, her opinion won't matter anymore. You'll be too busy living at a higher standard to even notice. That's the real victory. That's the real closure. That's the truth most men ignore. But the ones who embrace it, they never go back to the old way of living. Because once you realize you were always the prize, you'll never again waste your life begging to be valued by someone who couldn't even see.